Hello everyone, Mr. Happy here and welcome back to another Final Fantasy XIV news video. Seems the news just keeps pouring in about Final Fantasy XIV as interview after interview is translated and released, as well as a ton of new screenshots and information regarding the patch that is now only 6 days away. This specific interview is, I believe, with Dengeki and 4Gamer. Yes, it says it right at the top if you would just read it, Happy. Now, it's a lot of text, so I don't expect you to be able to read all of it on the screen, but we are going to jump through some of the points here. I'm sure you've already seen the title of the video, and we will definitely get into that part because it's something that, for the first time, I feel Square Enix has shown a little bit of foresight in their design ideas, but I don't know if I necessarily agree with it. Now, a lot of this talks about the different aspects of the upcoming patch, including the fact that the Japanese name of the patch is actually Soul Inheritor, as opposed to Soul Surrender, which is our English version. With that out of the way, it actually talks about how you're going to inherit someone's will or inherit the soul itself, which definitely is a much different prospect than surrendering your soul, unless, of course, we're talking about the person surrendering their soul to us. While we've been constantly talking about the Warriors of Darkness potentially trying to steal the soul of the Warrior of Light or his Blessing of Light altogether, this sort of gives us a different interpretation of what may actually be happening come patch time. Now, moving on, they talk about Alisaie's reactions to the main character if you have or have not completed the Binding Coil of Bahamut. There are actually 3 different reactions Alisaie can give you. The first is if you never completed second or final coil, where she'll act kind of distant to you because she doesn't know you. She hasn't seen you since, what, a level 19 main story quest in Ul'dah? You didn't even meet her technically there. Then you have one if you've beaten the second coil, where she's familiar with you, but she hasn't quite gone through the entire transformation of her character because you haven't completed the final coil. And then if you completed the final coil of Bahamut, she acts very friendly, almost fawning over the Warrior of Light in admiration. So keep those differences in mind if you're able to complete the Binding Coil before Tuesday. Keep in mind that even if you don't beat it before Tuesday, if you, after Tuesday, want to go clear Coil before doing patch 3.4's main scenario, you're more than welcome to that. You don't have a deadline of Tuesday, technically. They talk about how the story is moving away from the Dragonsong War and instead focusing entirely on Eorzea, meaning on Hydaelyn, the entire star that you're on. And that certain key aspects of the main scenario, including the Man on the Moon and the Warriors of Darkness, will have a lot more of the questions answered. Let's see, what else do we have here? They talk about Zelphatol and how a lot of the main story is also going to be dealing with the conflict with the Beast Tribes, and therefore summoning is kind of unavoidable at this point. Great Cabal Library has some of the Final Fantasy V bosses that you know and recognize, especially Living Flame, so they hope you're looking forward to that as well. Next is regarding the difficulty of Sophia the Goddess. Now, while they've been toting that she has very unique mechanics that will probably be difficult for people to figure out, she's tuned to be easier than Sephiroth Extreme. Whereas once one person has kind of figured out the puzzle, sharing it with everybody else should make the fight significantly easier. That being said, it's still probably going to be something that causes some issues in the Duty Finder. That's always the case whenever you have pug-type content. And there's definitely going to be mechanics that you're used to seeing in other fights there, as well as the more unique prospect, which at the current moment appears to be the balancing of units on both halves of the arena. Balance is the goddess's theme. On top of that, her reward is confirmed to be a weapon, but there are rumors circulating right now that her weapon will actually be more powerful than the crafted weapons that are to be available. To reference, the crafted weapons are to be item level 250, and of course are going to be pentameldable, which some people are concerned that Sophia will be rendered irrelevant to those who can just afford the weapons. We don't know yet, but it is possible Sophia's weapon will be higher than item level 250, at the most probably item level 255. To help further substantiate that claim, Sophia's minimum item level was hidden when she was revealed on the Lodestone, something that hasn't happened since, I don't even think Thornton Extreme hit it. I believe Thornton straight up told you it was 190 or 195 in order to get in. Sephiroth required 190 for normal mode, 205 for extreme, and then Nidhogg required 205 for normal, 220 for extreme. If we follow by that logic, she is likely 220 and 235. If her weapon ends up being slightly higher item level, though, it's not beyond the realm of possibility. Her minimum item level is 225 for normal and 240 for extreme. We'll have a definitive answer on that this Friday when the preliminary patch notes come out. Now, they also started talking about some of the small additions, including Deep Dungeon. They spoke about how there's going to be the new ranking system, and the ranking system has been confirmed to not just be something for solo players. it's going to be something that you receive pretty much upon completion of everything, even if you go in with a group of 4 people. Now, that being said, you'll get more points on those leaderboards, which are indeed class specific, if you are soloing to the later floors. He does think that it's going to be, they actually don't know if it's possible to beat floor 200 solo, but he suspects that warriors, scholars, and summoners will probably have the easiest time. So, in all honesty, it's a good thing that they're broken down class by class, because if a black mage beats floor 200, you'll know how impressive it's going to be. They also mentioned 2 new mechanics that were added to Palace of the Dead. The new Pommanders, which you can get a look at in the trailer, one of which is a transformation Pommander, and hidden treasures, which we've also seen in the trailer, where it looks to be a trap on the ground, a golden trap, and when you step on it, it actually becomes a chest. Now, we don't know if that actually adds any meaningful gameplay elements. It's worth suspecting that the majority of Palace of the Dead will remain the same, with the 101st to 200 floor just being a huge increase in terms of the damage and amount of resources available to the player. Now, they also mentioned on Alexander the Creator, now, there's been a huge thing, and we brought it up on State of the Realm, where there's a concern over the difficulty, where he says world first people will probably clear it in 5 days. And now, keep in mind that all that is somebody, Arthur's, I believe it was Arthur's, asking Yoshi P how difficult it'll be and getting a Yoshi P quote and sharing it on Twitter. It basically, I don't know exactly how far that goes. Yoshi P's expectations of clear rates have been mostly different up until Midas. Midas, they seem to have about an even expectation of when people would clear it. So if that does end up being true, 5 days for World First is good for the World First people, because they want to probably get to the Mythic raids coming out in WoW the same week. That being said, they said that just because you get crafted gear doesn't mean you can beat it. Like, you're gonna have to play the game well in order to get through the new Alexander the Creator Savage. Obviously, normal mode is not gonna be super difficult, but for Savage, he's like, don't worry, it's not like it's gonna be a joke and like everyone's gonna clear it. It's like the people who are hyper dedicated will clear it fast, yes. Everyone else will probably clear it in about a month. You know, your average player who's not going for world first and is also not like just trying to beat it as fast as possible. Your decently skilled players will probably beat it in about a month. So oddly enough, he says he thinks the players' skill in this game in terms of mechanics are high, just that he thinks most people don't know how to DPS on their jobs properly. So that's an interesting prospect that Yoshi seems to have on the community. I have a feeling that my comment section is going to be filled with many, many comments about that. He also speaks about the themes of Gordius, Midas, as well as the Creator. There's a lot of Japanese words here that are taken into English context. They're paraphrased in some ways, so I'd rather not just confuse us all by trying to go through that. Just keep in mind, Alexander, his theme is time, and you can see that in the trailer when you fight Alexander on a giant clock. Just keep that in mind. That's all he's asking. Now, the battle encounter with Alexander itself, he actually says... Oh, so one important thing regarding that is this section right here. Now, we know the face target changes are coming in patch 3.4, where even if you're not looking at an opponent, you will still be able to auto-attack them as long as you're in melee range. Yoshi P acknowledges the fact that because this is a server-client model, that it checks twice for the completion of an ability, once upon initially hitting the skill, and once upon its finished cast, in the case of a Black Mage. Now, because of that, enemies can run through you and cancel out your spells, and he's actually, he's trying not to be overconfident that that will be fixed with these face target changes, but he's saying that he believes it should respond better than it did before. So, and it says that he's used to spamming the face target key as a Black Mage to make sure he never loses target because of that. They're not adding accuracy to healer gear this patch. You're still going to have to meld it all. And they're also, now we've talked about the Astral Ocean changes. I don't want to talk about that anymore. They said there's some small changes coming to Paladin. So Paladin's looking for a little bit of a buff. It says changes, but most of us kind of suspect that it'll be an upward change for the Paladins. Crowd control actions are being... what's called balanced for PvP, and there's going to be a lot of PvP only action adjustments as well. On top of that, the new craftable gear will require new materials gatherers can collect. That's a very specific designation, that it's not just something that can be bought with Lord Tomestones. Now, that's not to say that those won't be important elements, but for them to make this specific assumption makes me wonder if it's going to be as easy to get the materials, but he expects people to churn out crafted gear as quickly as they did back in 3.2. The weapons are the thing that they're most concerned about, but you know what? They'll never know unless they try. So like, you know what? Whatever. We'll put weapons in here, see how the community responds, how they react and whatnot. Now, this is one of the most important things, the balance between craftable weapons and Sophia weapons. We recently said, well, in fact, earlier in this video, that we thought that the Sophia weapons might be a higher item level. I'm going to read this word for word. If they reveal the item level of one of the items, and they keep in mind that right there, of one of the items, pretty much almost is another hint at them having different ones, that will allow players to see the rest of the item levels, so they cannot touch on that subject. But considering the fact you can meld 5 materia on a crafted weapon, a small item level difference can be flipped over. The Sophia weapon looks better, and most people won't need the craftable gear to clear Sophia, so Yoshi recommends people without gear to go straight for Sophia weapons. The difficulty of creating the craftable weapons is the same as the gear, so he expects players to craft them rather quickly. Yoshi P has already asked his friend to make the full set of new craftable gear with the patch launches. Hey, you're not the only one. But what about my time to do new content? So Yoshi P answered, crafting new gear is content, isn't it? I'm going to use that every time somebody says, but I don't want to craft, I want to go do the new content. It's like, this is new crafted gear. It is new content. Get to it. No, that's pretty funny. And his friend called him a demon because of that. So this still sort of alludes that there may or may not be a difference. It's not made abundantly clear, but he still seems to be encouraging people without gil to go complete Sophia. So we'll see what actually ends up happening. Let's see. The rewards from normal and savage mode will have little differences in how they look. The weapons will also have some cool looking gimmicks when you actually equip them. Alexander the Creator will have a never-before-seen in an MMO type mechanic where the boss transforms into a flying mode in the play. He's talking about Ark, where you jump up on his back. I don't know if that's never been done before. That's a pretty ballsy statement, but I mean, even when I just think of Ulduar, the first boss of Ulduar, yeah, you're not flying, but I mean, you have to launch yourself onto the boss to then destroy something. You know what I mean? Like, there's similar concepts. That was loud, whatever that was. Squadrons. Now, I'm not going to talk about this. If you know about the Final Fantasy Tactics side quests with NPCs, if you know about Garrison, it's very similar. All this does is explain more specifics. There are a total of 60 different NPCs that can be a part of your squadrons. They have different small settings behind them. It's not just about raw strength. You have other things that affect them, like their personal parameters, like their knowledge of teamwork, their knowledge of tactics. So there are other elements other than straight, hey, I'm a level 48 Dragoon, and I'm just that strong. There are other aspects that more speak into their individual character than there are just aspects that involve them in combat. There are also different rewards. There are different NPCs, all with different settings. They're all locked in terms of their like their race and their gender and all that. A character is a character. You're not going to randomize a character. So these are NPCs that they want you to get to know. They want you to learn the personalities of these NPCs, essentially. And that's my favorite word, by the way, essentially. And they also said Aquapolis is going to have new loot. So if you're someone who's been saving up dragon skins, Aquapolis probably going to be another. It's still been a good place for money. I got a Nutkin. I sold it for $1 million just the other day. But, it's 50-50 at this point. Now, apartments. This is essentially, see, I said it again, what the title of the entire video is about, because this shocked me the most. When they originally spoke about apartments, they said they were going to be doing 512 apartments per building. We then didn't know how many buildings we were going to get. Now, in the most recent live letter, they said it's going to be 90 apartments per building, but every ward is going to have a building. Approximately 6,500 apartments per server. Now, of course, the downside to that being people who own houses could also own an apartment. Now, the important thing is what this sentence states right here. They started with 90. Here it is. 90 people can live in an apartment per ward, and I'll highlight it while I'm doing it. They can actually have 500 people live in one apartment. So they actually did prepare every single one of those apartment buildings for up to 500 people. That is currently the specs that the apartments are tuned to. But in case there would be wards with nobody living in them, they're just starting with 90 available per ward. If that's not enough, they'll add rooms instantly. That's the key word. Instantly. Even if you miss the opportunity to buy an apartment on day one, they will add new rooms instantly. Now, instantly is probably, next week's maintenance, to be fair. They probably won't be like, oh, they're full, done, button pressed. But that should ease a lot of people's minds. If they have 500 ready, and they only have 90. We're currently at, again, let's just round it to 6,500 apartments per server. That is over 5 times the amount of servers available. Even if we were to just lowball it to 6,000 apartments, that's still over 30,000. I believe the exact number was 35,500 and something when we calculated it a few weeks ago. But that's good news. I mean, to be honest, I think they should have started with a higher number, and I also don't know if they're going to increase it, excuse me, on a per server basis. Like, hey, Balmung just filled up, increase them, but Zalera still has 1 million available, leave them at 90. You know, I don't know exactly how they're planning on doing that. But the good news is the concerns over whether or not you get an apartment on day 1 are probably not worth worrying about anymore. If you're on a server like Balmung or Gilgamesh, you'll probably, even after a long day's work, even if you can't get it that Tuesday, they will add more. So don't worry. All right. Then they just talk about how the apartments are basically the same as the personal rooms in the free company. You know, they don't have gardens. So you can't place a miniature aetheryte, but the moment you buy a room, the entrance to the apartment will be a registered teleport location. So yes, your apartment complex is a teleport location for anyone concerned about that. Let's see. What's it called here? The specific function to the lobby, so players can have an event with everyone in the apartment. Oh, so they're saying that if someone wants to hold like a party, like a Christmas party in the lobby of the apartment, they want to add options for people to be able to arrange that using the in-game functions as opposed to it being something that's just kind of done on their own. That being said, the lobby does not have a summoning bell. There are NPCs that will sell materials and repair your gear. There are facilities that can cover the minimum requirements, and there's also chocobo stables just outside. They also talk about aquariums here, that there are about 20 fish currently that you can put in aquariums, so you'll have to find which 20 fish it actually is, and that they're going to be adding 10 fish to that aquarium per patch. That is probably the correct translation of what we got off the live letter, where they said that they were adding 10 big fish per patch. This probably just means 10 new fish that work in the aquarium per patch. Just a few other little details. Thancred's eye patch isn't a glamour because it's connected to his face currently, so what they're going to see what they can do about allowing that to be glamour. The next veteran reward is the final veteran reward. The Squall is the final one ever, but they said they're planning a different type of long-term reward. I'm curious to see what that's actually going to be. Reduction in my sub again. Legacy. China and Korea have a culture where they don't care about the lore, so they implement whatever they want. If there are certain items they want to bring over to the global version, please send them your feedback. Okay. Items like the Odin figure will be a series, so the Odin figure is only the first one. Jesus. Regarding real-life goods, something Mikote lovers will be happy about is slowly under development. Oh, no. Oh, no. We'll see. And that's the entirety of the interview. So a lot of decent details, a lot of good insight into their planning for this patch, into the way the main story will work, especially the news about the apartments. And this is only one of like 5 videos I have to record today. So I'm going to get going. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. You know the deal. You make fun of it in the comments section. I see it all the time. But until the next video, ladies and gentlemen, take care.